Thank you for watching. I'm dressed a little more warmly than I usually am. Not because the heater in the studio is not working properly, but because I've got the flu. Woohoo. But I can still talk in between coughs. So let's try this. I like to watch Kent Hovind debates. If any of you follow me, you really know that already. And these are my thoughts on a certain debate, which isn't done yet, but wow, it's such a long debate. Here's how long it is. Aron Ra is Kent Hovind's opponent in this debate series. On Aron Ra's YouTube page, there are 19 videos which are this debate on a playlist. And we're talking about half-hour, hour-long, not 19 one-minute-long videos. On Kent Hovind's website, there are 7 videos on the playlist, and I've seen a couple others that are related to it or maybe should be on the playlist that aren't. What's unusual about this debate is they aren't in a room together, they aren't on the computer at the same time. Usually that's how a debate goes. You have an agreement about how many minutes each segment is, opening statement, main body, refutal, rebuttal, question and answer section. But they didn't use this format for this one. And here's why. These two were both guests on the Non Sequitur channel YouTube show. And Kent Hovind accused Aron Ra of cutting him off too much. Like, Kent didn't get to finish what he was saying multiple times. I watched that at least once, and yeah, he was cut off sometimes. And so Kent Hovind's not going to waste his time talking to somebody who's not going to let him have his fair share of time talking. That's a reasonable request. So, as far as I understand from watching these two videos, I don't personally know either of these two gentlemen, although I did talk to Kent Hovind on the phone once. So, step 1, or round 1 of this debate is supposed to be Aron Ra naming his 3 best evidences for evolution. I think he was allowed to explain and not just name one-sentence long explanations. Then Kent Hovind responds by playing Aron Ra's video, interrupting it as often as he wants, as long as the whole video that Aron Ra made is in the response. And then Aron Ra gets to do the same thing to Kent's rebuttal to Aron Ra's video. So with this format, they both get to talk as much as they need to make the point that they're trying to make. They both are unable to cut off the other person mid-sentence, so we can find out what the person actually wanted to say. And here are Aron Ra's 3 proofs of evolution that started the debate. It happens. Really, I'm not joking. He really wrote that and said that. It happens. Wow. I hope if he ever accuses me of a serious crime, that juries are not that gullible. A serious crime I haven't committed. I hope juries aren't that gullible. Because, hey, he did it isn't proof. If that was proof, we could... The taxpayers of everywhere in the world could save a whole lot of money on trials and courts and just lock everyone up who's accused. And taxonomy, too. Taxonomy, also called systematic phylogenetics. In other words, the life, the tree of life. That word's got more than one meaning. The tree of life, that evolutionists mean, which means a chart where at the bottom is a single cell animal that became everything, and the lines connecting how the the hypothesis about how everything came to be. That could maybe almost be kind of proof of something if it was proof of something. But similar parts are not absolute proof of lineage. If you doubt me, go to any store that sells a lot of the same things, and you'll see different items, bigger, littler, certain parts missing, certain parts there aren't the other ones. And if this taxonomy is proof of evolutionism, then that also proves there is no such thing as a car factory, a truck factory, a gun factory, a sewing machine factory, a fan factory, a video camera factory, a computer factory or plant, etc. So, proof 3, Aron said, we have an actual theory, and creationists don't have an actual theory. How's he defining actual theory? Just because you can tell the story with a lot of confidence doesn't mean you proved anything. And creationists do have a theory that actually matches what we see much better. So after that weak start, what else is there to talk about? Kent Hovind correctly identifies that you can break up evolution, and what people mean by that, into multiple stages or parts. Now, the first one assumes that at one point in the extreme past, well, in Kent Hovind, in the past, there was nothing. And matter and space didn't exist. Kent's wrong about that. Kent calls cosmic evolution when everything started being, existing, all the matter and elements in the universe. But of course, God created the earth out of already existing materials. But now, step 5, chemical evolution. You started out, according to the theory, with a whole bunch of hydrogen that became all of the elements in the world, in the universe. Stellar evolution, 4, is the formation of stars and planets and solar systems. Organic evolution is another way of saying abiogenesis, or life actually starting when there was no life. And that's an important part of the godless creation story. It had to get there, it had to get started. 2, and that's different than macroevolution. So each of these things is a little bit different, but it's still evolution. Macroevolution is all the different life on Earth coming from one single cell organism that mutated and became everything. Plants and animals. Now, of course, that has never been seen. All of those 5 things have never been seen. They are philosophy. Maybe you could call it historical science, but it definitely deserves a different name than things we can actually see and test, like the decay rate of a murdered body, like how much electricity goes through a wire of copper, of aluminum. And what can you expect dogs to turn into when you selectively breed funky dogs? See, those things are witnessed, observed. That is science, what we can learn by observation. Now, the grand finale for Kent Hovind's list is microevolution, which should not be called evolution, but the evolutionists, when they are postulating their religion, say, see, that is evolution. What are you going to say? No, you just hallucinated, that's real, but wrong word? We could do that too. Yeah, that's not evolution. Or you could say, fine, you want to call it evolution? It's microevolution, and it's different than macroevolution. microevolution is a scientific fact, which virtually nobody disputes. No creationist with any sizable following, no creationist that I follow, believes that microevolution doesn't happen. But what microevolution does is turn a wolf into a dog that would die in the wild. It turns a turkey that could reproduce in the wild into a turkey that needs people to stick tubes into certain parts of its body and suck out certain important reproductive fluids. You see, those are examples. Dogs that couldn't survive in the wild. Chihuahuas probably wouldn't last long. The dogs with fur that mats up, that's not going to help them survive in the wild without a person there to groom them. Furless dogs. Even in the desert, some fur is good to help you avoid a sunburn. And at night in the desert, it gets very cold in some deserts in the world. Alright, so, microevolution. Now, some evolutionists, they point to examples of microevolution, and maybe that's what Aron Ra meant when he said it happens, and dishonestly say, see, that is macroevolution, that's everything. No, it isn't. Alright, Aron Ra claims that he cut out irrelevant things from Kent Hovind's response video when he was making his video. I didn't take the time to fact check it and compare the videos about what he cut out. But Aron might have been cutting out things that really did deserve to be cut out. And what do I mean by that? Well, the subject of this debate is supposed to be, is evolution a scientific theory? Is it worthy to be called science? Has it been scientifically proven? Or is it a religion or philosophy? Kent Hovind starts off a lot of his videos, most of his videos, with 5 to 10 minutes of a song and talking about what is happening at Dinosaur Adventureland. We finished building that, we still want that, this thing is broken. We found this part for our vehicle, we found this thing that's going to be donated if somebody can get it here. We found this construction equipment that we need. For this much money, if you give enough donations, I'll be able to afford it. Now, things like that have absolutely nothing to do with the subject of the debate. And if that is what Aron Ra cut out from his response videos to Kent Hovind, that's a reasonable thing on his part. Other things Kent Hovind does that are irrelevant to this debate is he sometimes ends his videos trying to talk people into paying lip service to God, as if there are no commandments or call upon the Lord, which it does say a few times in the Bible, just means pay lip service one time and not really have a change of heart and really follow God and obey the commandments, including baptism, which is ordered more than once in the Bible. So it's definitely reasonable on Aron Ra's part if he cuts out Kent Hovind's altar call at the end of his video where he says, all you got to do is say this prayer, or a prayer like this, and then he says something and says, repeat after me, and then he says, now you're a Christian, and you've been saved. You can do anything, you're definitely getting into heaven. And that's reasonable to cut out. In this debate, both of the participants did not want to call the other one by the preferred name. Aron Ra was more disturbed by this than Kent Hovind was, but it's a fact they both were not calling each other by the preferred name. Kent Hovind called Aron Ra Aaron Nelson, Larry Nelson, and Lawrence Nelson. Kent has said he wants proof that Aaron Nelson or Larry Nelson actually changed his name before he would call him by the name that his YouTube channel is, and Kent still doesn't even want to do that because Ra is the Egyptian sun god. And Kent would rather not call a sinful human being God. Now, Aron Ra, instead of calling Kent Hovind, or Kent, or Dr. Dino, called him more than one time inmate number, and I forgot the number because I don't care what that number is, but Aron Ra apparently tried to find out Kent's inmate number from when he was locked up in prison. Alright, Aron Ra likes to bring up Kent Hovind's incarceration, but that has nothing to do with the subject of the debate. Has anyone seen a bacteria that mutated and became a multicellular animal? That would prove Aron Ra's contention. It would, if like half of the soup and chili cans in the world had life coming out of them, that would prove his contention. Every day that a factory is making a chili or a canned meat or a canned soup, as long as it's not a vegetarian soup, a science experiment is being done because all the chemicals needed for life are in there if you have protein. And if it's soup, then you've got protein and other important things, like, certain vitamins that animals would die without. But we don't get life coming out of most cans of soup. Those extremely rare times when there's some kind of life in it, we know that there was a contamination, that the can wasn't sealed properly, or it got a small hole in it. Now, Aron Ra even went so far as to have a lawyer in part of one of his response videos explaining how what Kent Hovind did was illegal. I didn't pay close attention. I listened to it, but so what? See, Kent Hovind, being a bad person to get legal advice from because he has gotten locked up, has absolutely nothing to do with has a dog ever been witnessed, observed, seen, giving birth to something that was not a dog? A mutated dog still is a dog. What we see are usually things that would survive less well in the wild, not things that would survive more in the wild, or be more survivable in the wild. Great example, cows that produce a lot of milk. Guess who's going to be the first cow eaten in a natural selection scenario if there's a cow with a mutation to make a lot of milk? The cow with a lot of milk. So that will force all the other cows, by natural selection, to stay cows and not become freakish and weird. Aron Ra accused Kent of being a pseudoscientist. And Kent gave a really good definition of science. Science is learning by what we can observe and test, or using the scientific method. And the scientific method is not bullying and name-calling. It is actually coming up with theories and hypotheses and tests and running the test. Pseudoscience uses the names and language of science, but actually doesn't follow the scientific method and doesn't actually test things or try to learn by that way. Some Aron Ra followers, I heard, were complaining about the length of Kent Hovind's responses. Kent Hovind's responses were reasonable. He had to explain things. And some of the response time Kent Hovind tied himself up with was responding to ad hominem attacks. Kent Hovind's got every right to defend himself and explain if he was falsely accused of something. Yep, Kent Hovind's example to explain why his responses are not unreasonable is to bring up World War II. How many hours were the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor, and how many hours was the American response? America responded a lot more than 2 hours. Was that the reasonable thing to do? I think so. Yeah, one thing to briefly touch on. Aron Ra tried to shift the burden of proof, but the burden of proof is on whoever is claiming what they say is scientific fact. Kent Hovind, well, he's dishonest about what Mormons believe. You can't trust them about what the law says about things or what a church is. If he's honest about the difference between what scientific evidence is and what he believes on faith, what he has faith in, and Kent is not trying to get his religious beliefs taught in public school science classrooms, he has no burden of proof, or a very low one. People like Aron Ra, who demand their religion, and it is a religion, be taught in science classrooms in public schools, have an enormously heavy burden of proof. You're saying it's science, then prove it, and name-calling is not proof. Alright, there were logical fallacy accusations. Here are the logical fallacy accusations that I heard the different two of them make about the other. Aron Ra accused Kent Hovind of using an argument from incredulity. Really, credulity is believing things without good evidence. Incredulity is not believing something that wasn't proven. But Aron apparently was using this word as a synonym for believe, whether there's good evidence or not. So he was accusing Kent Hovind of having it proven to him and looking at the proof and saying, I don't believe that. That proves that wrong. Kent Hovind did not commit that fallacy. Aron Ra didn't prove anything other than his own willingness to not actually explain things well or not have proof for what he claimed he had proof of. False dichotomy. Kent Hovind, at least at one point in one of these many hours, pointed out that Aron Ra was making a false dichotomy. See, we don't have to accept Aron Ra's story or animals or microevolution never happens. He was presenting it as if you have to believe that dogs will never become a little bit different and a wolf could never be selectively bred into a chihuahua, or believe him. But you can believe the truth. You can believe microevolution happens and disbelieve macroevolution. Both of them accuse the other of making ad hominem attacks. Of course, that is another way of saying attack the person. I think it's a Latin word. An ad hominem attack is when your proof that somebody is wrong has absolutely nothing to do with the subject at hand, but you make an insult on them. You know, imagine somebody looks up and says, the sky is blue, and the other person says, you're short and ugly. What does that have to do with the sky being blue? It's, you know, it's two different things. And Aron Ra, yeah, he did a lot of ad hominem attacks. Don't believe this charlatan. Well, then explain where he's lying. Don't believe this charlatan. Okay. But Kent Hovind did not do any ad hominem attacks. Now somebody's screaming at their computer right now, yes he did, yes he did. He called Aron stupid. He calls people who believe evolutionism stupid. Okay, there is a difference between pointing out that somebody's stupid, and maybe it's not the kind, nice thing to do. Maybe it's not the most gentle thing to do. Maybe it shouldn't have been what he said. But it's not an ad hominem attack if he's pointing out somebody's stupidity, but his argument is about the subject at hand. You know, saying nobody has ever seen this happen, and you're stupid to believe it, is not an argument that don't believe it because the person's stupid. It's never been happened, never seen happening, never been witnessed. Appeal to authority and appeal to majority are two logical fallacies that Aron Ra used. Just because somebody's got professor after their name doesn't prove what you say. If they were convinced of something, then show me what convinced them. Don't just say, hey, this guy's a professor. You believe it, or I'm going to call you stupid. You believe what this guy said, or I'm going to use an ad hominem attack against you. appeal to majority is a logical fallacy where instead of talking about actual evidence and reasons why something is or isn't, you just cite statistics about this percentage of this group believe this and that. Percentage of people that believe something is not proof that it's true. That only proves that that percentage believe it. And that is an illegitimate argument if there is some kind of punishment for people not believing. Everybody should watch the Ben Stein movie. It's more than 10 years old now. It's a documentary, Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed. There are people that will actually try to fire you, get you fired, if you don't believe the religion of evolutionism. There are college professors who among their list of requirements for them to recommend you to go into advanced training and get advanced degrees or medical school, they will require you to have a religious belief about evolutionism, or they won't sign off on a recommendation for you to get into the advanced education. So, anytime there are punishments for not believing something, the majority believes this or that, is an illegitimate argument. We could probably think of some dictators. North Korea right now. Germany, 1940. Russia, for many years. And Hitler probably had high approval ratings. Probably a lot of people would have said, yeah, mein Führer, he's great. Kim Jong-un probably doesn't have a lot of people willing to, on camera, say that he's a bad guy. Well, if you get punished for saying something, then majority opinion doesn't count. Unless you really think that Hitler's high approval ratings, or Kim Jong-un's high approval ratings, or think of any other dictator in history that was killing people for not believing that he was good, well, you know, if you think the guy was great because of high approval ratings and you're going to ignore that, there's no help for you. Alright. A related video to this that Aron Ra brought up in his comments. He says he has made the phylogeny challenge and no creationist has ever met the phylogeny challenge. I watched his, it was about a 13-minute long phylogeny challenge video, and it was, challenge is not the right word, phylogeny blah. Proving that video wrong was, you don't need to try to prove it wrong, it proves itself wrong because of such bad logic. At the end of his 13-minute video, if there is ... creationism, I didn't get the full quote, let's see, or if there is some critical flaw in evolution, it must be found here. When he said that, on the screen was the circular tree of life. What do I mean by circular tree of life? Well, the tree of life usually is tree-shaped, but that takes up a lot of space and it keeps going. And you might not have enough space to draw the full tree. Well, if you make it a circle, you can control the size of it better, so it all fits on paper to make the point that it's all related. Well, that the person drawing it believes it's all related. Of course, lines on paper are only proof if they were written by a witness. Of course, if you fit the whole tree of life onto one paper, unless it's a very big paper, you're going to need a very good magnifying glass, a very expensive, high-quality microprinter, and or the ability to zoom in. But it gets the point across. Now, problems with his video that should have been named Phylogeny Blah. Instead of Phylogeny Blah. He actually quoted a Disney movie. He cited a Disney animated movie about what an animal looked like that we don't have a lot of information on or no real information. Wow. And that's science? Disney drew this thing this way. That's science? Whoa. And of course, a lot of these these animals are supposed to be half human, half, the missing link. They're based on one little bone. The Denisovanians are based on one little bone fragment. This one animal that they sometimes say is the beginning of human evolution. They found two little bones the size of a grain of rice. Actually smaller than a grain of rice. And with those two little bones, they claim they know how much fur it had, if it was a mammal or a reptile, if it gave live birth, if it laid eggs. One of the things that Aron Ra does in his video Phylogeny Challenge is he misrepresents the creationist position. All those lines on paper connecting the different animals can be drawn because there are similarities. Nobody is saying that whales and dolphins don't have flippers. Nobody is saying that humans don't have a lot in common with apes physically. But that similarity does not equal proof of a relationship, of a common ancestor, because a creator can create things that look very similar. Proof of that would be go to a car dealership. There's going to be a lot of similar parts in the different cars. Every one of them is going to have a steering wheel that's round. Is that because there was a skateboard that had a little tiny bump on it, and then the next year that skateboard gave birth to something with a bigger bump that became the first steering wheel? No, it's because there's a designer and a creator creating things. One logical fallacy is you can't critique a theory or a hypothesis if you don't have your own answer. Yes, you can. That's bad logic. An idea is wrong because it's wrong, not because you don't have the complete answer. But creationists have a lot more of an answer. A lot more of an answer than Aron Ra gave us credit for. Yeah, I was thinking of the court system for finding out who committed what crimes. Wow. I'm glad that I haven't been charged with any crime I didn't commit yet. But if that happens in the future, I'm glad this logic has not permeated the American court system yet. If this logic were used in the American court system, the defense in a criminal case would be forced to convict the actual criminal if the defendant wasn't the one, instead of just causing reasonable doubt and showing how the prosecution story doesn't actually prove the defendant did it. So, yeah, one of the things that Aron Ra said was, how many bovines were there originally? We don't need to know exactly how many to say that there are limits to bovine changes, that it's always going to be some kind of a cow, maybe a freakish cow, a weird cow. The more weird the cow is, the more likely it would die in the wild. And usually when we see changes happen to things, they become less survivable in the wild, not more survivable. And that is science. Thank you for watching my comments on this debate, which was won hands down by Kent Hovind. And it's still going on, but there's already, like I said, 19 videos on the one playlist from the one participant and 7 on the playlist for the other participant. Thank you for watching. You have a good day.